Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Last night, Steph Curry made history as he passed the all-time mark for most three-pointers made in a career, passing Ray Allen, who was on hand at the game last night. This was sort of a long time coming. Steph Curry had been sort of proclaimed the greatest shooter ever, I'd say, years ago. So it was only a matter of time till he broke this mark, but there was a ton of fanfare and anticipation, and kind of cool that he did it in Madison Square Garden. I'm sure for Knicks fans, that was a little bit painful because when he was drafted, I remember they really, really wanted him, and he went, I believe, the pick before, and they ended up with Jordan Hill. So Steph Curry kind of, putting a little bit of salt in the wound there, but he does break the record at Madison Square Garden. Sap, what were your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was a nice occasion. I also think it was blown completely out of proportion. And I'm not trying to sound like the cranky old guy here, which sometimes I can be. I'm 58 years old now. So at times I can sometimes be the cranky old guy. Although when it comes to basketball,
I'm the crankier old guy.
You're the cranky old guy, and I'm the hip young guy, right? Like we're Benjamin Button. I'm going backwards in age, and you're in dog years at times. Look, it's a great mark by Steph Curry. It's not a surprise that he broke it, set it, and I think he's going to put it out of reach over the next 4 or 5 years. But in terms of the pecking order of all-time great records, threes made is down the list, especially even in basketball. I mean, forget baseball, which, the home run mark, ever since I've been born, that was the mark that was the one that had the most cachet. When Hank Aaron broke that in 1974, that was one of the biggest moments I can ever remember as a young person, because I was 11 years old when it happened, and Hank Aaron, a black man in the South, broke Babe Ruth's record, and it wasn't done with a lot of fanfare. There was fanfare in the stadium that night, but there were death threats, and it was not a pretty scene. And for that great man, Hank Aaron, to go through that for that period of time was just sickening and incredible. And then, of course, we know that Roger Maris had held the home run record for 37 years till McGuire and Sosa broke it in 1998, and then 3 years later Bonds broke it. Well, there was no celebration for Barry Bonds breaking the home run record in 2001, and there was no celebration for Bonds breaking the all-time home run record in 2007 when he eclipsed Hank Aaron, because people despise Barry Bonds, my favorite athlete of all time. So I guess I am a cranky old man. With Steph Curry, people love Steph Curry. I mean, who doesn't love Steph Curry? Kids love him. Moms love him. Everyone loves him. He is the greatest shooter we've ever seen. But aren't the other records that are there in basketball more impressive? Points, assists, and rebounds are bigger than threes. I mean, threes is kind of like a niche stat or a niche happening. Look, he broke Ray Allen's mark. Meanwhile, LeBron probably it's Abdul-Jabbar's mark for leading scorer in the NBA. I mean, breaking Ray Allen's mark or breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's mark is a bit different, right? We can agree on that. And I kind of equate this, that Steph breaking this record would be somewhat like breaking the steals record in baseball. Like, it's nice, it's impressive, but it's not quite the home run record for a single season or the home run record career-wise, or no one's ever going to break the wins record in baseball. Cy Young has 511 or 512. That's never going to be broken.
No one's going to come close.
No one's going to even come close to that. No one wins games anymore. It's starters by committee.
Combine three players and they won't come close.
Yeah, they probably. I mean, if you crack 200 wins now, you're going to the Hall of Fame. So I think it was nice, but it was a bit overblown, and part of it because people love Steph, right? I mean, what do you think is going to happen in March or April of 2023 when LeBron, who right now is 2,600 points behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the points record, do you think it's going to be as big a celebration? And that's a much more impressive record. Sorry, it just is. Do you think it's going to be as big a deal? I think it will be fairly big because it's LeBron, but there's not as much love for LeBron as there is for Steph Curry. I don't think it's going to be covered the same way as last night the coverage was for Steph Curry. That's maybe me being a LeBron sycophant. I get it, but I just think that Steph is so well loved. There's really no detractors there, and he's 6'3". He's non-threatening. He looks like the average guy you might run into the street, and he sets a record, which again was held by a really, good player in Ray Allen, who broke another really good player's record in Reggie Miller. Two guys that are on the all-time 75, the 75th anniversary team. I don't think either really belongs on there, but they're on there. Whereas LeBron's going to break Kareem's record. I mean, that to me would be bigger, but I don't know if it's going to have the same reaction as when Steph broke the record last night.
Yeah, I think it will, because it stood for so long. I think it's gonna I mean, I think there'll be more detractors. Certainly, like you said, there's really no Steph detractors. So I think you'll hear, like Skip Bayless and a lot of people saying, well, basically he's just been playing to break this record and stats stuff, and there's, so he should be dinged for that. I'm sure there will be that, but I think there'll be, a big deal. I'm sure that Kareem will be there. Hopefully he's still with us when that happens. And I think there'll be a big celebration. They'll stop the game, present him with something. I think so. I'm not sure it's inevitable. I think he's going to break it, but
he needs about 100 games. Right now, he's 2,600 points behind. He's averaging 26 this season. He's averaged 27, it feels like, every season of his career. I don't think he's slowing down. In fact, I think he's having kind of a bounce back, and I'll explain that in a moment why I think LeBron is playing at a very, very high level right now. So I think he's going to break it in March or April of 2023. Probably going to play, I'd say, another 40 games this year. So let's say 60 games into next season, again, with load management, injuries, whatever. So I think it would be towards the end of next season that he'll break the record, provided he averages 25, 26 per game. So I think it's inevitable he's going to break it. I don't want to see him breaking it in 3 years when he's averaging 17 and he's just kind of limping across the finish line. I mean, Steph just broke the record and he's having an MVP caliber season. And oh, by the way, LeBron's also having an MVP caliber season, because I'll show you the numbers in a moment. But what was your reaction to it? I mean, obviously it was a celebratory moment in the NBA at Madison Square Garden, which again, that got blown out of proportion too. The world's most famous arena. There's been one finals that's taken place at Madison Square Garden since 1973. I mean, it's almost like, now we've both been to Italy, right? When you went to Italy, did you go to Rome?
Yes.
I would assume, if you come to the United States as Florida, you do go to New York City. If you're a Florida, you do go to Rome and the Colosseum. Like the moment that Colosseum, I was like, yeah, this is okay. It's I've seen more impressive things.
Really? I really like the Colosseum, but I'm not Italian, so maybe you're just like, I want to see other stuff here.
I mean, St. Peter's Basilica was more impressive because you get to see Michelangelo's incredible works, and I'm not even a religious person, but
maybe
that was
more
fulfilling
my bloodlust, Sap. Maybe that's
there
why
you go.
Right,
yeah, Gladiator, right? You just had your calling for Russell Crowe, and again, I'm Roman, so I was looking for Julius Caesar maybe to be around to greet me as a fellow Roman. But it like Madison Square Garden. That's the other thing, is like, there's great stars that are there, and Spike Lee was there, and Michael Strahan, and Denzel Washington, whoever the hell else was in the stands. I mean, the Lakers trump the Knicks when it comes to stars, right? I mean, like the Lakers draw more people. I mean, I think the Forum, which they haven't played in over 20 years, now they're playing in Crypto.com Arena. I think it's officially that now in LA. That to me is a better venue than Madison Square Garden. Again, since 1973, there's been one NBA Finals played at Madison Square Garden. Can we get over the fact that that's the world's greatest arena? It used to be, but it's not anymore.
Come on, Sap. That's all they have, though. You got to let them have something. The Knicks fans have to cling to something. That's all. And
I'm not a New York hater at all. I love New York City. I do, but it's just like, it was at Madison Square Garden where Jordan put up the double nickel when he came back in 1995, and every player's favorite place to play. Yeah, it's great. It's actually the oldest arena in the NBA at this point. But I mean, it's just, again, it's a bit overrated. I think the moment last night was a bit overrated. But what were your thoughts on it? Like, what was your reaction to that? It was inevitable. It was like, when is he going to break it? I figured, okay, by his third or fourth shot, sometime in the first quarter, and that's exactly what he did. At that moment, were you like in tears? I mean, was there any kind of emotional reaction to it?
I thought it was overblown. I agree with you there. I agree with you that it's not. I think what I would call a prestigious record. I mean, it's a record. It's cool to me that a record got broken in the NBA's 75th season. I think that's a cool storyline. That there's been some historic things going on in what is a historic numerical season. I think some of the shine got taken away because this was the most inevitable of any record being broken. I mean, the writing was on the wall 6 years ago that he was going to break this record.
When you start averaging 350 threes a year, which is essentially what he has the last 6 or 7 years, yeah, it's pretty inevitable unless he just retires at a very young age or is constantly hurt. And he's had some injury, problems over the years. He broke this record in 500 fewer games than Ray Allen set it, which is just mind blowing. But then again, he takes more threes than Ray Allen took. I mean, it's not as look, he's the best shooter ever. I'm not disputing that. He's a 43% 3-point shooter, which is just insane. That's insane. But Ray Allen was also a 41% 3-point shooter, so he was a great shooter as well. So yeah, but it was inevitable, right? That Steph's going to break this record, and I don't even think it's going to be approached by anyone, because where do you think this ends? 4,000, 4,500? I mean, could he get to 5,000 made threes? I mean, it sounds ludicrous, but he's only 33. He's still playing at a ridiculously high level, and he's averaging more than 5 made threes per game. Do the math.
I would anticipate too, as he gets older, if he does want to continue to play, which, he may not. He's done everything you need to do in the NBA. He's won MVPs, he's won championships, scoring titles. So he could decide to hang it up at some point. But I would, if he doesn't, I would imagine he would, if anything, take more threes and less driving to the basket. So it's certainly possible he could approach his 5,000. That to me would seem like a mark that would be insurpassable. But then again, people are taking more threes than ever before. So maybe, I don't know. I just think records in basketball are, I think, going to be, some of them are going to be impossible to be broken. Like some in baseball are going, like you said, the wins record, that's going to be impossible to be broken. Like no one's going to average 50 points in a season ever again.
And total rebounds, Jet, I don't think that's ever going to be broken. Will Chamberlain is first all time with 23,924. The active leader in rebounds is Dwight Howard with 14,405. So Wilt leads that by 9,500 rebounds. The
Wilt numbers nobody's never going to
be. No, those are insane. Now, the assist record, John Stockton, who is not one of my favorite players, and I think in a future podcast we're going to talk about him, but even as a player, I think he was a dirty player. I think he and Karl Malone, were like stat compilers, and they got to 2 finals and they couldn't crack through. Hall of Fame player without question. But Stockton in his career had 15,806 assists. The active leader is Chris Paul with 10,552 assists. So he's a little more than 5,200 behind. I don't see Chris Paul getting 5,200 assists in the rest of his career. He'd have to play 6 more years and average 10 per game and not miss any games. That's not going to happen. I mean, Trae Young is a guy I'm going to throw out there for assists because he's getting 8-9 assists per game and he's very young. People have talked about maybe he potentially could challenge Steph's record for threes. He's not as good a shooter as Steph. He's averaged roughly 2.5 threes made per game. That gives you about 200 threes per year. He'd have to play for 22 or 23 years to break what Steph is probably going to get. So I don't think Steph's record is going to be approached. I don't think Stockton's record will be approached, nor do I think, obviously, of all of them, I feel most safe in saying Chamberlain's rebound record's never going to be approached. Kareem has a 2,600 point lead over LeBron. I think that's going to be broken in March or April of 2023. But the one thing I compared it to was steals in baseball, which that's never going to be touched, right? Because first of all, the thing about Steph maybe having his record broken in 30 years, I think I'll be dead by the time someone comes along and maybe even approaches that, is that there are more threes, right? Every year. There's just more threes out there. So maybe some dude's going to come along that can shoot like Steph, but is 6'7" and can even do it better. But in baseball history, Rickey Henderson's the all-time steals leader, 1,406. The next is Lou Brock with 938. The active steals leader, this blew my mind. D. Gordon with 333 steals is the active leader.
It's not a thing anymore.
It's not even a thing, right? Whereas with Steph, the record, he should get it to 4,000, 4,500. Good luck breaking that. But we do see that there's so many threes being taken right now that, who the hell knows what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years or after I'm dead. You might see strictly 3-point shooting. Like no one's going to take twos anymore. That could happen, right?
You very well might, and that's what it's going to take is somebody who just is just so efficient and takes a lot of them too, because you have specialists like Joe Harris or even like Kyle Korver, JJ Redick. They were sort of 3-point specialists, but they just don't take enough volume of them to be able to get to that level. So you'd really need you need somebody who is a superstar level player who is efficient at threes and takes a lot. I don't think anybody who's in the league right now is going to approach it.
No.
So yeah, for me, Sap, the records in the NBA, the ones that are the most meaningful are the individual game records. Somebody, I don't think that anybody's going to touch the 100 points in a game.
No.
But that to me is the most sacred record in the NBA is the how many points was scored in an individual game. And so those are the records I think that matter the most in the NBA. The Kareem record, the points is certainly one of the gold standards. And I agree with you. I think LeBron will break it. I think somebody could come along and break that one too. Because LeBron, he's been a fantastic scorer throughout his career in terms of his consistency. But I could see, somebody being able to be not as good of a player necessarily as him,
right?
Score like that and be able to break his record. If Durant, it was more durable than potentially. But I don't
force the
good.
action more. If Kevin Durant decided in his last 5 years, I'm going to hoist up 25 shots a game, he could probably break the record, if he's healthy, like you said. Like Barry Bonds is the all-time home runs leader in a season and career-wise, and I never think of him as just a home run hitter. He was an 8-time Gold Glove winner, over 500 stolen bases, great hitter. I mean, he did it all. I don't necessarily think of him as just a slugger. I did with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Those guys were sluggers. With LeBron, it's almost like I think he's a better passer than he is a scorer, but he's going to set the record for most points in a career, and he's also going to finish top 5 in assists. And again, along to that is because of longevity, but it's not like he sucks at this point. In fact, I did want to run these numbers by you because I'm going to make this all about
because of course
LeBron.
You did, right?
Of course. Okay, so Steph this year is averaging 26.9 points per game. LeBron's averaging 26.3 points per game. Steph's averaging 5.5 rebounds. LeBron 6.1 rebounds. Steph 6.1 assists. LeBron 7.1 assists. Now I get that Steph has played more games than LeBron, but by the end of the season, maybe they'll be a lot closer in that. Field goal percentage this year, I'm talking 2s and 3s. Steph is shooting 43% from the floor. LeBron 51% from the floor. Now LeBron doesn't take as many 3s as Steph, but he takes a lot. In fact, I think he takes too many 3s. Effective field goal percentage, Steph is at 56%, LeBron is at 58%. My point being is everyone's talking about Steph's the clear front runner for MVP and that LeBron is washed up. I don't think that that's the accurate. I still think LeBron, along with Durant, Steph, and Giannis, those are the 4 best players in the league. And I'm going to compare LeBron to Barry Bonds. Now, Barry Bonds, whatever he did to start hitting home runs in 2000, 2001, and beyond, okay, that's another discussion for another day. But I think when McGwire and Sosa were breaking and setting the records and becoming the 2 most popular players in baseball, Bonds, who is one of 5 or 6 legitimate sociopaths that I've ever seen as an athlete, like Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. Those are the 5 guys I consider sociopaths, like insane competitors. LeBron's not that guy. He's too nice a guy to be that. But those 5 guys are just nuts. So I think in his own mind, he was like, interesting. Griffey's now the most popular player. He's considered the best player in baseball. These 2 guys who I'm 10 times better than are breaking home run records. Don't forget about me. And then he went on a 5-year run where those numbers from 2000 to 2004 are like unsurpassed in the history of baseball. I think LeBron is getting a little fired up about this. Like, hey, don't forget about me. I know Giannis is the best player in basketball. At least I think he is. And I think you're right there with me. And Durant and Curry are great. And it's like, don't forget about, he now wears number 6 in purple and gold. He's still in the discussion. And they're 10-6 when he plays, and they're 5-8 when he doesn't play, or whatever the records are. I think he's kind of saying, don't forget about me. And I think that's why his play is elevated. He was just player of the week. The last month he's played as well as ever. So I think that this has kind of fueled him a little bit, with Steph breaking the 3s record and being loved by everybody, and Giannis being the guy that everybody respects because he stayed in Milwaukee and won, and Durant's now considered the best player. I think LeBron's like, hey, don't forget about me.
Yeah, maybe there's something to that. I think the biggest thing going in Steph's favor for the MVP thing is the team's record, obviously,
Right,
and the
exactly.
Lakers' record just isn't that good right now. And even though they have played better with LeBron, but even with LeBron, they still have one more loss than in the limited time than Steph Curry's team has on the season.
Right. True.
I mean, we talked about this the other week. I had Curry as my MVP as the top of my list, but I've actually switched it based off of last night. Kevin Durant took basically a sickly Nets team with like 6 active players and had laid a triple double down, and that was following a 51-point performance. Kevin Durant's playing at just like a freakish level right now. Like, I mean, just like literally, like there's the NBA, and then there's whatever league Kevin Durant is playing in.
He's special. I've said this. I mean, how many times can I say this? I think every podcast that this is the greatest all-around scorer in the history of the sport. I'm sorry.
He's doing other stuff now too,
and he's doing other stuff too, which he can. Right? Yeah. I mean, you get a triple double. He's an outstanding passer. He's a good rebounder. He can be a really good defender. He's so efficient. It's incredible to watch. Yeah. I mean, he and Giannis, I think, are the 2 best players in the sport. And LeBron's right there with Steph. Those are the 4 guys that I think have kind of separated themselves from everyone else because they have the track record too. It's not like this is their second good year in the league. I mean, these are legendary players. Durant, I would put number 1 MVP. I mean, he actually called me last night to see if I could get on a plane and help him because he had like nobody to play with. He literally was playing with nobody. I mean, I know you can't stand Aaron Rodgers right now. He's still my guy. But Rodgers won a game in Arizona with no wide receivers. He won a game against the Rams with no offensive line.
Your guy and Chris Collinsworth guy. Chris Collinsworth.
Oh, he loves him.
Embarrassing.
He loves him some.
Embarrassing.
He loves him some Aaron Rodgers. That's his guy. I've compared Durant and Aaron Rodgers for years, and I think it's a great comparison in terms of like natural ability. There's nobody better than those guys, and they can just focus in on what they have to do without anyone around them. I mean, look at Durant last year. He comes within a foot of hitting a 3 to eliminate Milwaukee with James Harden being out of shape and on a blocky hamstring by himself, right? And Kyrie Irving, out of the series, and when he's there, he's not always there. So those 2 guys are very, very similar. But Durant is he's legendary at this point. Well, not at this point. He has been legendary, right?
Sap, you must have loved. Did you see his tweet last night? Skip Bayless was criticizing
that was
LeBron,
fantastic,
as he's wont to do. Durant, yes. I don't like you. He doesn't like Skip Bayless.
Exactly. He doesn't like Skip.
I don't think many people do.
Well, but here's the thing about Skip. He's smart enough. First of all, he's making $6.5 million a year doing what we do.
He doesn't care.
He's laughing all the way to the bank. And it's almost like Kevin Durant acknowledged me, like even though it's negative.
Gave him a full week of content.
Right. Exactly. So that's great stuff because Skip is all about, Kevin Durant's better than LeBron and Brady's better than Rodgers, which I agree with. Brady is better than Rodgers. I've stopped pushing back on that. That's like been retired. But yeah, so Durant, what he's been doing is incredible. Those are your top 2 leading MVP candidates. And I think Giannis is jumped back in there, right? Because, he's putting up his usual 27, 12, and 6, which is kind of scary. Yeah, and the defense. See, that's the thing that I think can separate from everyone because he's also younger than these guys. Like he can bring it every night. Like,
LeBron of the 4 of those guys, he's right at this point the best defender by leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds. He's the best defender.
LeBron can be from time to time, but he just doesn't have it in the tank at nearly 37 years old. And Durant's never been a great defender, good defender. Steph is more of a help defender, has led the league in steals. But, back in terms of what Steph did last night, again, fantastic moment. The guy is incredible, but I just do think it was slightly overblown. And here's the thing. I just want to run more numbers by you because I did a lot of research today, Jet.
It seems like you did,
just want to make sure. Yes, I had a lot of spare time.
I'm okay with that.
It's okay. I'm bringing the heat today. So here's the amount of threes per game over a period of time in the NBA. Back to 1987-88, that was the year that Reggie Miller was drafted by Indiana. The average game had 10 3-point attempts per game, 5 by each team. 2001, 2002, it was 30 per game. So, it had tripled between 87 to 2001. The 3 became more prevalent. Then we look at 2011, 2012, 37 per game. Here we are in 2021, 2022. The average game has had 71 3-point attempts per game, 30.
That's crazy.
5.5 by each team. Now, I have no problem with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, James Harden, pick whoever the great 3-point shooters are. hoist them up as much as you want. Because if Steph's a 43% career 3-point shooter, that's like shooting 65% from two. That's fine. He can take as many threes as he wants. The problem is when guys aren't good shooters are taking a lot of threes, like Anthony Davis, who's shooting 20% from three this year, or Russell Westbrook, who's shooting 32% from three, or Marcus Smart's not a really good 3-point shooter, yet he likes to hoist up a lot of threes. That's where the problem becomes. It'd be like a quarterback who can't throw the ball deep, deciding, well, the other guys are throwing it deep. Let me throw it deep. Well, you're not a good deep thrower.
Celtics are the perfect example of that, Steph. I mean, they take as many threes. I think they're like second or third in the league in terms of how many they launch, but they're in the bottom 5 in terms of what their percentage is. But that's just that's a lot of team strategy is just shoot threes because, the analytics says that it's just a much more valuable shot. Even if you miss them, it's a better shot. I don't like it. Again, I have no problem with like you said, Steph Curry taking them and stuff, but I don't like what it's done to the game in that it's basically dribble up the court, shoot a three.
Right.
Again, now I'm sounding like the grumpy old guy. I think for a lot of these guys too, like Curry, it's just become far too easy. These guys are just too good at it now. To me, I've thought for a couple of years now they should expand the court and make the three deeper. I think it's too easy.
Okay, so you would expand the court, and so you'd widen it, obviously, because it just can't be elongated because a lot of the threes are from the corner, which is actually shorter else. So you widen the court. Now, obviously, that's going to mean since a lot of these basketball courts are in hockey rinks, so you're going to have to take away some seats, which is revenue, which will affect the player's income. And I don't know how that's going to work. I do agree with you that if we widen the court, now we make the three further out. The only thing is if the three's even more further out, that's not going to deter Steph Curry. I mean, he can shoot from 35 feet. What happens?
No, but he's the anomaly. So I don't.
He is right. So you don't want
to. Again, it's not a Steph Curry thing. It's a other
a league thing. But if you have a guy, I think it becomes even more unfair for Steph because it make him even more effective. He brings the defense out even more. That's going to open up everything in the middle, and he's a good enough passer that Draymond's going to get to the basket as a cutter, or Klay Thompson's going to get to the basket as a cutter when he comes back. So by widening the court, and I don't know if you can make it longer. You could do that as well if you want. I mean, they did change the dimensions of the lane because of Will Chamberlain. He just strictly overpowered people. This is more about skill. So yeah, I mean that's something you play with. I mean, Jet, in 10 years, we might be seeing 100 3-point attempts per game if this continues on. It's been 10 straight years.
Yeah,
that the attempts per game have gone up. Right. So it's now, and I know a lot of people who, again, more older guys and younger guys, but you're an old soul. But I have a lot of friends that are, even older than me, believe it or not. And they're like, I can't watch this anymore. It's like, just run down the court and chuck up a three. There's no ball movement. Now, Golden State, even though they take a lot of threes and make a lot of threes, their offense is still a joy to watch because it's quick. There's a lot of movement, and Curry moves without the ball better than anybody. It's not like he just walks down the court, stands there and hoists threes. I mean, he works to get open, and then he shoots off of moving and off the catch better than anybody's ever seen. I mean, the thing that makes him so difficult is he's got 3 different ways to beat you on threes: catch and shoot, catch, dribble and shoot. So create his own three off his handle. Like no one's ever been able to do all 3. Ray Allen was really good at catch and shoot and catch, one dribble and shoot, but he couldn't necessarily create his own threes like Steph does. Like that's what makes him lethal. Like with Steph Curry, with or without the ball, past center court is in scoring position. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I just, like you said, with those people, I'm agreeing with them. I don't like to dribble up the court and shoot a three, or the ball to never go inside the 3-point line. And I like fast break basketball. I like transition basketball, and I think that the 3-pointer has done away with a lot of that. Another suggestion I would have is then if you're not going to widen the court or lengthen the court and make the 3-point shot deeper, then make it 5 seconds in the key, or get rid of the 3 in the key thing and just have that, because then you can maybe have, more center play and stuff like that, which I like. I just,
so change the 3-second violation of 5 seconds so that,
or just do away with it in general.
Yeah, that would certainly be interesting. The other thing you could do, right, Jet, is maybe eliminate the corner 3. Like if you're not going to widen the court, because widening the court is going to become impractical because of dollars. Really, I mean, you're going to have to widen the court, lose seats. Look, if you go to TD Garden, those seats bring in a lot of money. If you widen the court, you can't sell them, and they're also playing in a hockey rink, so there's only so much they can do with that. So that maybe you eliminate the corner three, like 10, 12 feet up the court, and just have the three go right to the out of bounds. So it's not that same dimension. Now you don't have the corner three, because the corner three is the best shot to take. And there's guys, I mean, San Antonio was the first team
the problem
that really
is it's keeping some guys employed. There's some guys in the NBA who make their money all they do. Purely based off of that. One
Grant
shot.
Williams, right? Grant Williams, that's his thing. He's a good corner shooter. The rest of his game is, so yeah, that's the thing. Now, again, the Players Association would push back and say, well, you're going to eliminate one part of the game. We're going to eliminate two guys per roster that can't make it as much money because they're not as effective. And there's a lot to take place there. And this doesn't look to me, Jet, like anything that's going to just go away. Right. Because
it doesn't.
The thing is, the analytics work. Now, the thing, too, that I want to push back, and this is not all hate towards Steph Curry. I love Steph Curry. In fact, I think of him more as a player than you do. Not quite as much as Christian Burgoyne, our former producer, who thinks Steph is the greatest thing since whatever. But people talk about how he changed the game. Yeah, he had that impact. Analytics changed the game. When analytics came out and said threes are better than twos, it happened to work into what he does best. It's not like he came out of Davidson and they said, wow, this guy shoots better than everybody else, because it wasn't evident right away. It's just the analytics said, go ahead and shoot more, Steph. And he just continued to get better. And then they started to win. If he had been hoisting up 10, 12, 13 threes per game and they never won a championship, then he's not really changing the game. He's making it entertaining, or he's changing the look of the game. But I think analytics changed it more than any particular player. Wilt Chamberlain changed the game when they had to widen the lane because he was just bigger, stronger, more skilled than everybody else.
Yeah, I agree with you about the analytics changing it too. I would say that Steph has changed the game more than any individual player since Wilt Chamberlain. That's not saying he's the best player or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely.
The stylistically, what he's done has been, a game changer, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. I'm not going to be that stubborn and push back on that. I think that when people talk about him as a top 10 overall player, I think that's getting
it's going to be difficult for him to crack that. I think it's more likely that Durant will crack the top 10 before Steph Curry, because Durant can do more.
Well, yeah, if I'm starting a team, I'd take Kevin Durant 10 times out of 10 over Steph Curry, not even think about it. I would sleep like a baby.
He's 9 inches tall. The only thing is that, and people will hold this against Durant, that he has never won a championship without Steph Curry, and Curry did win a championship without Kevin Durant. So we had that debate a couple of weeks ago where who's had the better career. And on the surface, it's like Durant's had a better career. He scored more, rebounded more, almost as many assists, better defensive player, all that stuff. But it's like, Curry has the 2 MVPs to Durant's 1, and Curry has 3 titles to Durant's 2, and Durant needed Steph to win those 2. So,
right.
But I think if one of them could crack the top 10, it's probably Durant. If Durant wins another championship or 2, and you put him above, I would put him above Oscar Robertson probably sooner rather than later. I mean, I think that's likely to happen. Will he surpass Kobe? Now, Kobe, 3 of his 5 championships, he was the second best player on the team. So, we can hold that against Kobe. Could you put Durant past Duncan? Different players, right? I mean, completely different players. And then now we're talking, can Durant get to the Bird level? Yeah, he can. I know people in the Boston area say, oh, hell no. But you don't have to watch much of Kevin Durant to realize he's an all-time great. And the same thing.
It's about titles Curry. Now for him. Yeah, it's about titles.
It becomes titles. Exactly. It's like it is with LeBron against Jordan. Because those two, LeBron's at a different level. He's chasing Jordan, whereas Durant's chasing, I don't know, Kobe, Oscar Robertson, Tim Duncan, maybe Larry Bird, Magic, in that group. Whereas LeBron and Michael kind of separate themselves from everybody, with the possible exception of Kareem and Bill Russell, but those are big guys. So that's a difficult conversation to have. So yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens. And these 2 guys, Curry and Durant, they're not going anywhere. It's not like they're washed up. They're playing at an incredibly high level, and the game looks like it's become easier for them. It's almost like when you watch quarterbacks in the NFL, right? You watch, okay, the two best quarterbacks in the NFL remain Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. One's 44, one's 38, because the game looks so easy for them at this point. They've kind of mastered it. Well, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry have mastered the game of basketball, and it looks kind of easy for them. Like,
yeah,
why
and this
would they
season
retire?
they're both playing with a hand tied behind their back. They Curry hasn't had Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant hasn't had Kyrie Irving. Has had kind of a confused James Harden, who still hasn't really adjusted to the rule change.
I like that.
He's untracked and a fool every week, by the way, James Harden, which is awesome. And because he'll have plays where you're like, what? Like, he just will like turn the ball over. He won't chase out to the ball. Like, he does seem confused out there sometimes, but it doesn't matter.
That's a good way to
throw Kevin Durant on any team in the league.
Yeah,
they're a title contender.
I told you, Durant reached out to me last night. He likes me, not Skip Bayless, and he said, can you make it out here? We need some bodies. And I'm 5'9", 240. I don't know what the hell I do. I said some nice picks for Durant, like he needs anything. But
Patty Mills scored 30 for them last
night. What a great addition he was, wasn't he?
Oh, I mean, man, he's a good player. Yeah,
he's a championship caliber guy, right? He's like a Kyle Lowry, one of those guys. I mean, he's not as good as Kyle Lowry, but he's a guy that, understands his role and is going to come up big in those situations. So, I mean, Durant and Curry, they've got many good years left, because again, their game is so easy. Especially Durant, it looks like he could play in his slippers and it wouldn't even really impact him.
Like, he's so easy to play with too.
And he's so easy, and so is Curry. They're so easy to play with because they really are so efficient. Like you said,
double teams don't mean anything to
don't
them.
Even phase
Curry, you have to double in the backcourt if you're going to double him, because he just drive up and shoot it. Durant is basically taller than everybody else too, so he'll just shoot over two people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the two most confused players in the league right now are Harden and Westbrook. Westbrook has some of the most mind-blowing turnovers I've ever seen, where he just, like, the other night he had a pass and he threw it to the bench. Like, just right to the bench. I wonder if Westbrook needs to have his vision checked. Like, is he seeing who's, on the court or not on the court? But again, Westbrook's not going to age well because he's not a skilled guy. He's more of an athletic guy. Harden is a skilled guy, but I think he's still having problems with that hamstring. And he relies so heavily on going to the free throw line. And if they're not putting him there, that's going to impact how he plays. He's still doing what he does. He still gets 8 rebounds, 9 assists a game, and then 20 points. I mean, those aren't bad numbers, but they're not the level of what James Harden was.
He's not in good shape. Like, he just doesn't.
He isn't
in good shape.
Yeah, he reminds me a little like Paul Pierce. Never looked to be in good shape. I mean, because he always played kind of an old man's game.
Yeah.
And he still could be very effective at that, but who knows if Harden's still dealing with that hamstring, or like you said, I think that's a great word you used. He's confused. Like, he just doesn't know what the game is about right now. And that's a bad spot to be in as an NBA player.
Yeah. I mean, they've basically subtracted 10 plus points per game from him from the, the free throw hunting, which was a long time coming. It's been an excellent rule change. I think it's improved the quality of basketball, and it has made guys who are frustrating to watch, like James Harden, become, have to figure other things out. So far, he hasn't really, but it doesn't matter because they have Kevin Durant and they have the best record in the East, and they can beat anybody. It's not like there's the Warriors who are in first place or the Bucks who are defending champions. Even when the Warriors get Klay Thompson back, I don't think there's going to be an overwhelming favorite.
No,
I think any of those teams could win it.
Yeah, Phoenix is good, but I don't think they're unbeatable. Utah's playing well, but Utah always seems to lose its way in the playoffs, and the Lakers are probably going to make some moves and see what they reinvent themselves as. So, yeah.
I love that people are talking. We'll talk about this too later on another show. Like, you're like, oh, well, they're talking about internally about trading Westbrook. Well, yeah, of course they are, because it's a weird fit. Nobody wants to take on the Westbrook contract. They have no reason to, and the Lakers don't have anything to give to make it worth another team's while. So why would another team bail out the Lakers and take on Russell Westbrook's terrible contract?
Could you imagine being the person that has to let Russell Westbrook know he got traded from the Lakers? His whole dream in life has been to play for the Lakers. He looks like he's having the time of his life. He oftentimes sucks on the court.
How are they going to trade him?
But who's going to want the $41 million a year contract? Like, it's not tenable. I mean, you can look at some other, like Ben Simmons. Okay, you can look at Ben Simmons and say, okay, he's got 4 years at $35 million a year, but Ben Simmons is also 26, 27, and he's got some things that teams need, right? He's a great defender, facilitator, whatever. So you can kind of say, okay, maybe we'll take that on. The two worst contracts in the league right now are what, John Wall and Russell Westbrook? Are they going to trade them for each other? I mean, and what the hell
they did get traded for each other.
They've already done that once.
Before.
Maybe they should put them together and see what happens. That would be the wildest backcourt ever. Westbrook and Wall would be like incredibly athletic with some of the poorest decision making in the history of
worth
basketball.
More than many countries' GDP. Those two guys.
Absolutely. Contract. Bail out any small country. You're right.
So, all right. Congratulations to Steph Curry. Sap is not happy for him. He thinks it's a sham.
No. Very happy for him. I just think it was a little overblown last night. But I think part of it is because people just love Steph, right? I mean, he's like, of all the big athletes in the country, many of them do have detractors, right? I mean, like Durant has detractors, LeBron has detractors, Brady, Rogers, they have detractors. Baseball, no one cares about. Hockey, no one really follows. But of all the big athletes in this country, every one of them has some detractors, with the exception of Steph Curry, right? Because
Skip Bayless doesn't like him.
Yeah, well, Skip doesn't like himself. And apparently Kevin Durant doesn't like Skip Bayless either. But you get my point. Like, everybody kind of likes that. He's 6'3", and people watch him and say, well, maybe I could do that, which is ludicrous because he's the greatest shooter ever. You go take 150, 250, 350 shots a day in your driveway and think that you're going to become Steph Curry. That's crazy. I remember for years, people would say, my kid's not big enough to make the NFL or the NBA, but I'm going to give him a tennis racket or golf clubs, and maybe he can be a pro there. Like, that's any easier to accomplish.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, just give the guy a tennis racket and you got Roger Federer. Give the guy a golf club and you got Tiger Woods. It's that easy.
You probably do that with LeBron, right?
I don't know about tennis. I mean, LeBron would have an enormous serve, wouldn't he? Well, I mean, there's guys. I like Russell Westbrook. How would Russell Westbrook probably could? I wouldn't say a quarterback, because his decision making isn't that great. But picture Russell Westbrook as a wide receiver, a corner. Chris Paul would probably be a good quarterback. He'd be like Russell Wilson. Like, maybe not. No,
there's a reason. There's a reason we're, as a country, not great at soccer. It's because all of our best athletes play basketball or
exactly.
Football.
Well, could you picture Kyrie Irving? Say we made it mandatory, like
Italy's best athletes all play soccer, right?
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's some tennis and other sports, but yeah, if you're the best athlete, you go right to soccer. So it's why they're able to win World Cups with a population of 60 million people. But you look at if we made it mandatory to play soccer, like they do in China, where they decide you're going to be this professional athlete, or in Russia or whatever. Could you picture Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook on a soccer pitch? They would be phenomenal. Like
the United States, if our best athletes all played soccer, we'd dominate in soccer. Just sheer population size, we'd dominate in soccer.
Yeah, and picture Russell Westbrook as what's the position? Not the center back, but the wing back on defense, where you just run up and down. Like, there's not much to do.
Like a midfielder?
Well, no, I don't think he'd be a great midfielder, but he just could run all day. Like, and like a Chris Paul as a midfielder, or Kyrie as a midfielder with their hand. Well, you don't need hand-eye coordination, but their foot-eye coordination is exceptional. Oh my Lord, those guys would be incredible. We always talked about Rondo being a goalkeeper, because he's got huge hands. He's so smart. Like, he understands angles. Like, just picture Rondo as a goalkeeper. He'd be nuts.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, but we have all these guys, fortunately, in the NBA, and
yes,
Steph Curry is now the all-time three-point king. Long time coming, so congratulations to him. And we'll see what the response is when LeBron breaks Kareem's record, as Sap thinks is inevitable. And we'll be sure to do a massive show then. With Sap is going to be bringing on guests from all over the world.
Oh, absolutely!
Ordering a crown for LeBron. So make sure in like a year and a half you're listening to that. So that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are, as always, presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out our social medias at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer on Twitter. You can check out the show wherever podcasts are found. We'll talk to you later, everybody. See ya.